Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 31 Media podcast. My name is Vaishnavi Nashte. I'm the marketing and PR manager here at 31 Media. Today's podcast is in collaboration with the Digital Transformation Awards and the AI Summit and Awards. These two are two separate B2B events organized by 31 Media. And if you're interested in attending or exhibiting your tech solutions at the AI Summit or to advertise your brand at one of our award programs, please follow the link in the description to do so. Today, we have Brian Gavin on the podcast. Brian is the co founder of Wally, and he has years of experience in the domain of global CX. He has also written an insightful article on our DevOps online platform, so make sure you give that a read. And the entire article is about the future of customer experience in the age of AI. So don't forget, it's a very interesting read. Also, good morning, Brian. I think it's morning, right, where you are?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for having me on the episode today.
No worries. It's really a pleasure to talk to you. There's so much about your experience that's interesting. But yeah, I'm super excited about this podcast. Firstly, could you give our audience a bit more insight into your experience in CX and how you sort of navigated into the stream?
I started my career early on in the trenches of customer experience,
Mm-hmm.
helping to scale Indeed's support for SMB and mid-market customers. And this really gave an in-depth understanding about things like call center operations and support chat and
Mm-hmm.
how to really scale hundreds of thousands of inquiries.
Yeah.
And throughout my tenure, I went on to run a digital asset management platform where the customer experience expectation really was from a white glove enterprise level perspective, dedicated support,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of a different challenge and scale about how you handle those enterprise relationships and those enterprise inquiries. Now, as co-founder of Wally,
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting to be learning about the types of customer experience expectations and dynamics that our customers have. And so really going
Yeah.
from in the trenches to now, helping to scale an organization and empower team members, it's given me a lot of insights. And I think the most interesting aspect of change beyond
Mm-hmm.
maybe my direct focus is how technology and data has changed the way that not just a customer support or customer experience team handles the customer, but every part of the organization and the
Yeah.
ownership that those teams have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, AI and it's not just like a buzzword anymore, isn't it? Like it's been used in so many different projects, and it's so interesting to see the implications of it. Which brings me to my next question. What do you think are the key challenges that companies today are facing when it comes to like delivering a seamless digital experience for customers?
Yeah, every company is sitting on a wealth of data, right? Whether you're a
Right.
small mom and pop shop that sells coffee in your local community, or you're the largest of the enterprises in the world, and how to harness that data for where the company's at in their journey of maturity is really difficult, right? The mom and pop coffee shop isn't going to have
Hmm.
access necessarily to all of the functionality and ways to synthesize information, whereas the largest enterprises have so much, it's how do you scale it? And so I think that ability for every customer to take, or I'm sorry, every organization to take the
Hmm.
understanding that they have about their customer and to apply the data that they have in a very smart, intelligent, simple way is really difficult. There's some
Hmm.
great technologies coming out into the market that are a little bit more user friendly, don't require only the largest enterprises to handle that, and so that challenge of getting started is something that is a big barrier to entry.
Yeah. Amazing. And like you've also mentioned in your article that AI is like with AI and all of the changes that are happening around it, every point of contact can offer like a chance to personalize the customer experience, right? Like, could you shed some light on the influence of AI on CX and how can businesses ensure that whatever tech we have out there today, it poses as a way to sort of enhance and not hinder customer satisfaction?
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you think back, and I'm going back to the earlier part of my career 15 years ago, live
Mm.
chat, phone support. We started to get into this omni-channel space, right? And now from a expectation of our customer, there really is a personalization expectation that I have
Yeah.
as a customer coming to your website, interacting with your brand. And not every brand is just an e-commerce brand, right? There are still brick and
Yeah.
mortar aspects. So your ability to really understand how your customer interacts with your brand across a journey and all of these different touch points, right?
Hmm.
Uh, you might have only had the option to go to /support to get help. Now, the insertion of support and customer experience um, is being
Would be through
proactively
chatbots.
offered, right? Like, hey, I can sense as a company who has the ability to apply data and ability to apply AI, are
Hmm.
maybe you have a question, maybe you have a little bit of a challenge about a product, or you're not able. So instead of customer experience being so reactive, we now can apply proactive measurement to knock and say, hey, do you need help? Or
Mm.
maybe it's not even saying, do you need help? It's providing a little bit more of a silent way of providing you that assistance. So you don't even necessarily look at it as support, right? You
Yeah.
get that hand holding at a scalable, personal way proactively without even sort of knowing. Because once I have to go into opening up a support inquiry or calling an 800 number or having to initiate a live chat, it's
Mm.
disruptive to the flow. So that seamless experience. And the other aspect is that every brand probably at some point who has scaled customer experience and customer support, it has one part of the organization that handles those inquiries. And
Right.
now with various touch points, and you have your obviously growth of social, you have your mobile site, you have your desktop site. The ways that we're connecting with our customers and our prospective customers are changing. There are multiple parts of the organization that now have a hand in that customer
Mm.
experience journey that influences retention and that first buying experience or
Yeah.
my loyalty to your brand overall.
Yeah. That's such an insightful comment because it's as simple as like, even the chatbot that we have being proactive with those. It's such a small tweak, but it creates such a huge difference in the customer experience because even when I surf on websites, I want people to like come up to me because yeah, I don't know what question I might have, but it's easy to sort of like navigate when there's a person that I can talk to directly.
Yeah, and that's oftentimes when you reach the point of wanting support,
Yeah.
there's an anecdote of wanting humanized customer support, and that there's a balance, and you see some brands doing this very well, and then there's still brands that are maturing in where interacting with a robot is probably everyone's
Mm.
biggest fear. At
Yeah.
least that's my perspective. And so, how you humanize what AI and what chatbots and what um, IVR you're using, you want the ability
Hmm.
to really humanize that interaction so that I don't know as a customer whether I'm interacting with Brian as a customer support agent or I'm interacting with a chatbot that
Yeah.
really is no human intervention required.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. I've had some terrible experiences with that as well.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it's
thank
like, no,
you.
I wanted the live agent. I want to talk
Yeah,
to a customer. I want to talk to a live team member that can help guide me through this. And so
yeah.
the brands that do it really well, really blend whether you're interacting with a live agent or a chat agent, right? And
Mm,
then as a company, right, getting back to the use of AI and harnessing your data, someone obviously needs to be taking a look at what's happening, right? And what are the human touch points that team members are having to get involved with and all of the phone calls that they're taking. And we've heard for years this call may be analyzed and recorded for quality assurance. Well, this call may be analyzed and monitored for AI, right? So how do
yeah.
we apply what our agents and what our customers are asking about to
Mm,
create more seamless humanless touch points. And
mm,
that's a whole different role and beast in it itself because typically customer experience teams, they haven't had that dual channel, right? Like, well, now I need
yeah.
a really mature analytic and technical lens of my customer experience beyond just that of having someone help understand what my team members are scaling, right?
Mm, mm. Yeah, absolutely. And you've been in this space for like so long. I'm wondering, did you ever like come up to a point where you knew that okay, these are the certain best practices that every company must follow when it comes to, integrating whatever customer feedback there might be about a website, about the product and whatever it is into digital product development processes?
Yeah. One of the interesting aspects that customer satisfaction, right? It's something that we always are
Yeah.
asked for on a website, after a live chat, after I take a phone call. How do I gather that customer satisfaction, maybe even silently, right? Are there certain cues
Mm,
that I can take within the organization that help me understand that the encouragement, the support that I've given to my customer, that the customer is satisfied, right? Because I think there was a quick way to go about saying, how would you rate your interaction in live chat 1 through 5? How would you rate the phone
yeah.
call? Press 2 to give that feedback. As companies apply data and AI, we need to be able to synthesize satisfaction in other ways and tie that to
Mm,
how I did as an agent providing support, or how did my chat agent do in providing that support? Because
humanizing it a bit more.
yeah, and also being able to conduct that customer feedback in somewhat of a little bit more
Mm,
of a silent manner, right? Like, what was
yeah.
the intended outcome that the customer had, or the prospective customer had, by reaching out? And did they reach those goals? Because
Mm,
if they're reaching those goals, those are anecdotal ways to help measure whether the customer experience that you're providing is right. And
mhm.
we have to continue to ask our customers and questions around NPS, right? That's a
Yeah.
fundamental aspect of business that's been around for decades. That,
Decades, yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's still so applicable. But and how likely are you to recommend Brian as a customer support member? And did he do a great job efficiently answering your questions? Well, we need to apply that with the other silent factors of customer experience that we can measure, so that we
Mm-mm.
get a more comprehensive understanding about what is our brand, our ecosystem of customer experience doing, right? Because you asked in the beginning, about how it's scaled and how it's changed. Well, customer experience is kind of known and unknown in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an amazing insight, Brian. Thank you for mentioning that. And there was one more point that really stood out to me in your article where you've mentioned that data is the new oil. And like we know it's been said for like quite a long time, but as an end consumer, I'm always concerned like, what about data protection? And what if, I can trust the company with my data? And
Yeah.
according to you, like you've been in this space for such a long time, what role do you think cybersecurity plays when it comes to like the overall customer experience?
Yeah. So thankfully, a lot of the platforms that have scaled and grown in the customer experience world really help the brand. I don't want to say not have to worry about cybersecurity as much, but take a lot
Mm,
of the onus about how to protect certain parts of the customer information, because there's GDPR, there's California
yeah.
Privacy Act, and there's so many rules and regulations that the onus and the responsibility being put on experts in the field, and the experts in providing those customer experiences is a great way to, as a brand, have a little bit of a safety net. I'll say
Yeah.
the bigger challenges that brands are facing is there's customer experience data in 2, 3, 4, 5 different platforms. What ties all of that information together? How do I, as a brand, understand a customer who interacted in one of my platforms and another platform? When I pull all that data out, how do I aggregate it, right? And so
Hmm.
you need to have sensitive ways of anonymizing your information, but being able to really ultimately break your data down into the cohorts of customers that you
Hmm.
care about, that you've defined as a marketing team and as a company. And so we need to be really respectful as data entrepreneurs and as companies grow into AI, to be able to keep those anonymous aspects about a customer, but ultimately have
Mm,
ways of, I kind of refer to it as what's that key that ties together interaction data across all of your platforms, right? And do you really need to know the person's first and last name, or do they fit into a cohort? I heard something very interesting from a talk I was at around, um, I think it was called a data safe room or a data clean room, right? And so
okay.
these technologies and ways of joining information in a
Mm-hmm.
very secure manner so that ultimately what comes into your safe room, and if you think about it as a data warehouse, right, in a data lake, right, that discrete information about exactly who your customer is and the PII might live within this very protected space. But how do I
Mm-hmm.
now give it out to, it was maybe one team, well now 10 teams, your marketing team, your marketing
Yeah.
science, right? How do I give out information about who my customers are and who the individual customer is exactly without giving
Mm-hmm.
away all of the PII, right? Because that's really where the risk is. If it's very controlled information and
Yeah.
it's centralized, it makes it a lot easier to manage. So having ways to sort of scrub your data and
Mm,
append information that kind of tokenizes it, if you will, so that teams two or three layers removed from where that cybersecurity sensitivity is taking really seriously can still
yeah.
understand information about who their customers are and the interactions that are happening and the journeys that you're trying to piece together, right? And
Mm-mm.
there's ways to do that in an ethical, safe way. And like I said in the very beginning, there's ways to do this whether you're a 10-person company with no technical AI team, because we're seeing that evolution and scale of
Mm.
products that are being provided. And there's ways to do that if you have 100 or 200 or 1,000-person data engineering team that's helping you synthesize that information without the use of third parties. You just
Yeah.
need to ask those questions to your providers
Yeah.
about how they solve it, just like you did.
Mm. Makes sense. Do you think like the conversations around the ethical use of AI would be quite a lot more in the future? Because as in how, the AI trends are evolving, I'm sure there'll be a lot more questions around cybersecurity and data privacy and ethical use of AI itself.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of have a mixed opinion on whether we're going to see more and more questions being asked, because so much of the
Mm,
fundamentals that are being established today really should help us instill the best practices, right? It's like when the World
mm,
Wide Web launched, there was a set of principles and methodologies that help define how we create digital content. Well, I think the questions about how you handle privacy and data and security, if we are asking those questions 3 years from now, then the fundamentals about how data, because ultimately AI, right, is just harnessing information. Machine learning has been around forever, right? I don't want to say
yeah,
forever, but at least for the last couple of decades. And so how that
yeah.
information is applied, it's really important that the questions are not asked in the future. They're being asked now. And I think we are seeing a lot of good and appropriate interaction from the federal level, from the
Mm,
agency level, where we need to instill those practices today so that we're not asking those questions a few years down the road, because at that point it'll be too late.
amazing.
How
Thank you
data
so
is
much.
applied, I think, is the question that will continue to be asked, right?
Right.
We're we're now really able to apply data in a more proactive, synthesized way that's
Mm-hmm.
removing in customer experience some of the needs for human interaction to actually maybe forecast where those customer experience breakdowns are going to be.
Right.
I think the questions are going to be like, well, how much further can we push that, right?
Mm.
And what type of experiential interactions can the brand provide? And that's really where I think some of the interesting questions can be asked.
Yeah, that's a really good insight, Brian. Thank you so much. And my last question to you, and I'm sure this is the question that everybody thinks about all the time.
Yeah.
How do we prepare ourselves for the trends? But looking ahead, what trends do you see, like foresee shaping the future of digital customer experience? And how should companies prepare for these changes?
Yeah. One of the biggest aspects of the trends that I see is the scale, right? We had
Mhm.
this scalability challenge when we were trying to launch supporting live chat and phone interaction. The customer experience opportunities to engage are going to drastically grow, right? We the capabilities of what a brand can offer on desktop through the browser are drastically different than that on the mobile phone. And then I now maybe as a company have launched my own app, right? And so the trends around trying to scale your customer experience, we now have a handle and an insight from a multi-channel perspective, right? And now how do I continue to personalize that? How do you prepare for it? As a brand, it's really important to understand what do your customers care about, right?
Mhm.
And understanding what your customers care about are going to help you understand how far do you actually need to scale your interactions and where your customers are. Um, and you also need to be able to be bold, right? I mean, we're seeing a lot of new opportunities from a how we can as a brand support our customer
Right.
and test things, right? It's okay to fail. Failing is part of the learning aspect of what drives us forward as
Mhm.
a company. And so I think companies need to be prepared to fail, right? So many, especially in the enterprise space, maybe have kind of mastered customer experience, right? If you're a really large bank or some of these really large technology companies, you've created global scale about 24/7 phone support. And so maybe the engine is running pretty okay right now. And so how, if I implement new methods of offering my customer great experience, are
Mhm.
those failures going to be looked at as a diversion from what status quo is, or are they going to be looked at as a learning opportunity, maybe how to pivot
Yeah.
in the realms that you're trying to test the waters?
Thank you. I think that was like very, very helpful. And I'm sure our audience has been like very grateful for you to be on the podcast, and so am I. Thank you so much, Brian, for sharing all of your knowledge with us today. And please make sure that everybody you give a read to Brian's article. It's definitely very interesting. Yeah, thank you so much again, Brian.
Thank you again. I appreciate it.